Late at night in Midtown Manhattan, the skyscrapers still blazed with office lights. On the 27th floor, Adrian Blake sat alone in his sleek corner office, his back stiff against the glow of his laptop screen. It was nearly midnight. Papers were scattered across the desk, next to a Starbucks cup gone cold. The office was silent, but he kept typing those last few emails, as if the world revolved only around million-dollar contracts. A few blocks away, inside a luxury apartment in Tribeca, a small birthday cake sat untouched on the living room table. The frosting had begun to melt, candles unlit. Lily, just 7 years old, kept waiting for her father to come home. She wore the pink dress her mother had picked out, clutching her worn teddy bear, and every so often whispered, "Mom, will Dad be long? Will he blow out the candles with me?" Emma forced a faint smile, brushing her daughter's hair. "He's probably stuck in a meeting, sweetheart. He'll make it up to you tomorrow," but as the clock crept toward midnight, Lily's eyelids drooped. She fell asleep on the sofa, still hugging her bear tight. The birthday cake remained, but the memory that should have marked her childhood slipped away. When Adrian finally swiped his keycard and stepped into the apartment, the clock had already passed the 12. The lights glowed across a beautiful but hollow home. The cake was lopsided, frosting collapsing. On the couch, Lily slept soundly, her cheek pressed to the teddy bear. For a brief second, something pricked at Adrian's heart, but he pushed it aside, loosened his tie, and set down his briefcase. "You see this?" Emma's voice broke the silence, raw with sadness. "She waited all night for you. Do you even remember what today was?" Adrian exhaled heavily. "I know. Lily's birthday. But you understand, this meeting was important. I couldn't just walk away." Emma's eyes glistened, fixed on him. "Everything is always important to you. But she only turned 7 once, Adrian. She needs her father, and I need my husband. But it feels like your work has already taken you from us." The air thickened. Adrian had no defense. Silence had always been his shield, but tonight it only poured fuel on the fire. Emma pulled on her thin raincoat, her voice trembling. "If you can't be here, then at least let me breathe. I need to get out." "Where are you going at this hour in the rain?" Adrian rushed toward her, alarmed. "Anywhere but this cold, empty house." She turned, tears mingling with the storm outside. "Maybe tomorrow you'll regret this. But tonight, I can't take it anymore." The door closed with a hollow thud, leaving a cavernous silence. Adrian stood frozen, torn between chasing her and convincing himself she would return by morning. He sat back down, telling himself everything was still under control. But the next morning, the ringing phone shattered that illusion. "Mr. Blake? I'm sorry to inform you. There was a severe car accident on Canal Street last night. The victim was your wife, Emma Blake." The phone slipped from his hand. The apartment spun. His last memory of her was rain dripping from her coat, her desperate eyes, and the sound of the door slamming shut. For Lily, the news cut deeper than a knife. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She simply clutched her teddy bear until her knuckles turned white. At the funeral home in Queens, whispers floated through the crowd. "She's in shock. She has no tears left." As the pastor recited prayers, Adrian stood rigid beside the white-flowered casket, his shoulders shaking. The tears streaming down his face weren't only grief. They were soaked in guilt. He knew it was his endless nights at the office, his cold detachment, and that storm-soaked argument that had pushed Emma toward her fate. From that day, the Tribeca apartment became a hollow box, By day, Adrian buried himself deeper in work, running from the truth. By night, Lily hid in closets or under tables, avoiding every gaze. The home, once alive with laughter, now echoed only with keystrokes and muffled sobs in the dark. After the funeral, the Tribeca apartment sank into a cold silence, nothing like the laughter and scent of baked cookies that once filled its rooms. Emma was gone, leaving behind a void that nothing could cover. Adrian threw himself into work even more than before, as if a packed calendar could hide sleepless nights and gnawing guilt. But for Lily, the loss carved itself into her heart in a different way. On the first night without her mother, she hid inside the closet, door shut tight, clutching her teddy bear. When Adrian found her, he knelt and whispered, "Lily, come out to Daddy." But she only shook her head, wide-eyed in the dark, as if the light itself carried new pain. Day by day, Lily withdrew further into her own world. She rarely spoke, never cried, never smiled. Food left before her stayed untouched. She would pick at a few cereal flakes, then push the bowl away. Breakfast became the same bleak scene. Adrian with his coffee, Lily staring down at a bowl of milk-soaked cereal gone cold. Every night, she woke with a start, sometimes screaming, "Mommy," sometimes only trembling, drenched in sweat. Adrian would rush in, trying to hold her, but her tiny hands often pushed him away, her eyes wide with a strange fear. More than once, he stood outside her bedroom door, hearing muffled sobs, unable to go in. He was terrified he would only make it worse. Mrs. Bell, the longtime housekeeper, tried hiring nannies to care for Lily. But one after another, they left. Some lasted 2 weeks, others only 3 days. Each left behind notes. "She never spoke a word to me. She hides in the closet and refuses to come out. She screams at night." I don't know how to help. One young nanny even broke down in tears in front of Adrian. "I can't bear her eyes. She looks right through me, like I don't exist." The spacious apartment, with its glass walls overlooking the Hudson River, designer furniture, and private basement pool, became nothing more than an empty shell. The TV stayed off most nights. Dinners passed in silence, broken only by the clink of silverware. Adrian tried seeking help. A child psychologist from the Upper East Side came with dolls and toys. Lily sat in silence, not touching a thing. After half an hour, the doctor spoke quietly in the hallway. "She's experiencing grief-induced mutism. She needs time. And above all, she needs your presence." Presence. Those 2 words haunted Adrian on his commute at the signing table in the glow of his laptop at midnight. But how could he be present when he himself was terrified of facing Emma's absence? One Saturday morning, Adrian rose early with resolve. He boiled eggs, toasted bread, poured orange juice. Setting the plate in front of his daughter, he said gently, "Today, I'm not going to the office. We could go to the park, if you'd like." Lily stayed silent, turning her spoon with her finger. Then, in a whisper, "Mommy used to take me to Central Park. We fed the pigeons." Adrian froze. It was the first time Lily had mentioned her mother since the funeral. His heart clenched. He wanted to say something, but his throat tightened. Before he could speak, Lily dropped the spoon and fled into her room, slamming the door. Adrian sat motionless before the empty chair. The toast cooled on the plate. Outside, the Hudson glittered in the morning sun, but inside him was only heavy shadow. Day after day, the same pattern repeated. Lily ate little, slept poorly, avoided everyone. Mrs. Bell sighed. "At this rate, the child won't last." This house needs a different kind of breath. I'll find someone who can help. Adrian only nodded, drained, a quiet fear tightening in his chest. He was losing his daughter all over again, this time slowly, painfully. In early October, New York turned cold sooner than usual. That morning, as Adrian tightened his tie, Mrs. Bell announced, "I've found a young woman. She's never worked as a nanny before, but my sister knows her and says she's truly genuine. We could give her a try." Adrian frowned slightly. He was too familiar with faces that came and went, with empty promises of helping Lily get better. But looking at the dark circles beneath the eyes of the housekeeper who had stood by him for 20 years, he nodded. "Fine. Let's try that afternoon." Grace Morgan arrived. She was about 22, wearing a simple knit coat, her brown hair tied neatly in a ponytail. In her hands, she carried no thick portfolio or expensive toys, only a worn canvas bag. Grace gave a shy smile as she stood before Adrian. "Hello, Mr. Blake. I'm Grace. I can help around the house if you'll let me." Adrian gave a cautious nod, his manner reserved. He doubted a young girl with no teaching degree and no experience could succeed where 7 nannies had already failed. But Mrs. Bell seemed convinced, and he was too exhausted to argue. On her first day, Grace didn't approach Lily directly. She simply moved quietly through the apartment, tidying cluttered shelves, wiping the counters, starting the laundry. From a distance, Lily watched, her large, dark eyes cautious. Adrian noticed Grace sometimes whistled a tune, not pop music, but the nursery rhyme, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." One afternoon, returning home from the office, Adrian heard an unfamiliar sound drifting from the kitchen. Giggles. He quickened his pace. What he saw stopped him in his tracks. Lily sat on a stool, her tiny hands carefully stacking plates onto a shelf. Beside her, Grace stood with a gentle smile, guiding. Big plates go on the bottom, small ones on top. "Perfect," Lily, the child who had been mute for months, suddenly chirped. "Did I do this right, Miss Grace?" "That's right." Grace nodded, her eyes shining. "You did wonderfully." Adrian froze. He couldn't even remember the last time he'd heard his daughter's voice so clear. When Lily noticed him at the doorway, she startled, clutching her teddy bear, a flicker of fear in her eyes. But Grace quickly said, "Daddy's home. Show him how well you stacked the dishes." Lily hesitated, then shyly lifted the plate in her hand. Adrian forced a smile, his throat tight. "It's wonderful. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart." That night at dinner, something felt different. Instead of staring at her plate in silence, Lily began chattering about a new game with Grace, guessing scents from jars of spices, cinnamon, mint, lemon. She spoke and laughed, her eyes sparkling. Adrian sat there holding his spoon, feeling as if he were dreaming. Later, when Lily was asleep, Adrian found Grace in the kitchen washing dishes. Slowly, he said, "In just one day, you did what no one else could for months. How did you manage that?" Grace wiped her hands on her apron, thinking before she answered. "Honestly, I didn't try to do anything. When I saw her hiding in the closet, it reminded me of myself as a child. My mother died young too. I used to hide under the table, and the more people pulled at me, the more frightened I felt. So I just sat nearby and told her stories from my childhood, so she would know she wasn't alone. And then she came out on her own." Adrian fell silent, his chest tightening. For the first time, he saw something different in this young woman: understanding. Day by day, Grace's presence began to brighten the once quiet apartment. She didn't use complex therapy methods or promise miracles. She was simply patient, When Lily drew, Grace sat beside her, scribbling silly doodles. When Lily spoke of her mother, Grace listened, nodded, and added softly, "Your mom must have been wonderful." Gradually, the apartment no longer echoed only with the hollow tap of Adrian's keyboard. The halls filled with Lily's laughter. The kitchen carried the scent of cookies she and Grace baked, and the living room rang with the sound of puzzle pieces clicking together. Adrian often stood at a distance, quietly watching. In his daughter's eyes, he saw light for the first time, and in his own heart, a fragile spark of hope flickered to life. Maybe, just maybe, this family wasn't completely lost. One Saturday afternoon, the New York sky was heavy with gray clouds. Adrian decided to cancel his weekend meeting and stay home with Lily. He brought his laptop upstairs to his office, leaving his daughter to play with Grace in the living room. From above, he could sometimes hear the sound of a child's laughter. Grace's voice encouraging, "That's wonderful, Lily." A sound once foreign to this apartment, now ringing clearly again. By late afternoon, when Adrian came downstairs for coffee, he froze on the staircase. In the living room, Lily and Grace were sitting on the floor, in front of an old wooden box, its surface covered in dust. Adrian recognized it instantly. Emma's keepsake box. He had put it away in the closet the day she was laid to rest. For months, he had never dared to open it. Inside were dozens of photographs, a few small notebooks, the necklace Emma always wore. Lily carefully held each picture, her eyes shining. "This is my mom, isn't it, Miss Grace?" She was so beautiful. Grace smiled gently. "That's right." Your mom's smile was radiant. Adrian felt his face flush. He stepped into the room, his voice sharp. "What's going on here?" Grace looked up, startled. "Mr. Blake, I'm sorry." Lily found the box and, "You think you have the right to touch my wife's belongings?" Adrian growled, his heartbeat racing. He had never raised his voice like this since the funeral. Lily quickly stepped in front of Grace, trembling hands clutching the photo. "Don't blame Miss Grace, Daddy. I was the one who wanted to look. I miss Mommy so much. But you never let me talk about her." The words cut into him like a blade. Adrian staggered half a step back, his eyes blurring. Lily went on, her voice breaking. "Every time I talk about Mommy, you stay silent or change the subject. I thought, maybe you didn't want to remember, so I stopped too. But I'm scared I'll forget her. Scared I won't remember her face anymore." Grace placed her hand gently on Lily's shoulder, then looked straight at Adrian, her gaze steady but not defiant. "Mr. Blake, I'm sorry I didn't ask first. But Lily needs this. Hiding memories doesn't make the pain disappear. It only makes her believe remembering her mother is wrong." The room fell silent, broken only by the sound of rain against the windows. Adrian stepped closer, looking down at the keepsake box. The photographs he hadn't dared to touch now lay in his daughter's small hands. One photo rose before his eyes, Emma laughing brightly in the park, holding newborn Lily. That face, so familiar yet so distant, like from another lifetime, made his whole body shake. He dropped to his knees, tearing the picture from Lily's hands. "That's enough. No more." His voice cracked. Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. "Don't you want me to remember Mommy?" In that moment, the wall Adrian had built for 2 years collapsed. He let the photo fall, then pulled his daughter into his arms. "No, sweetheart. That's not it. I was just too afraid. Afraid that seeing your mom meant losing her all over again. But I was wrong. You have every right to remember her, to love her with all your heart." Lily burst into tears, burying her face in his chest. Her sobs filled the apartment that had been silent for so long. Grace sat beside them, quietly wiping away her own tears. Adrian's hands trembled as he opened the box. Emma's keepsakes appeared one by one. The theater ticket from their first date. The silver necklace he gave her on their 5th wedding anniversary. The drawing Lily had made for her in preschool. Father and daughter sat together on the floor, touching the past. Each photo was a cut, but also a stitch. Adrian heard his daughter whisper, "Mommy's smiling, do you see?" He nodded, tears streaming down his face. When night came, Lily carried a small photo of her mother to bed. For the first time, she slept without hiding in the closet. Adrian stood in the doorway, listening to her steady breaths, his heart aching with both sorrow and relief. In the kitchen, Grace was gathering the photos that remained. Adrian walked in, his voice low. "I'm sorry. I was wrong to be angry. You did what I wasn't strong enough to do." Grace shook her head, her eyes gentle. "No one is wrong for fearing pain, Mr. Blake. But children need to know that love doesn't vanish with death. Lily just needs someone to let her remember her mother without feeling guilty." Adrian looked down at his work-worn hands, heavy as stone. For 2 years, he thought he was protecting his daughter by locking away every memory. But in truth, he had abandoned her all over again. That night, as he closed the keepsake box, Adrian whispered to himself, "Emma, I let you go too far. But I won't lose our daughter again." The next morning, the faint autumn sunlight streamed through the windows of the Tribeca apartment. Adrian woke early, his mind still heavy from the night of confronting the keepsake box. He walked quietly to Lily's room. The door was ajar, and inside he heard steady breathing. She was fast asleep, her small hands holding her mother's photo frame. No more hiding in the closet, no more curling beneath the table. For the first time in weeks, Lily's face was peaceful, angelic. Adrian stood there in silence, then gently closed the door. He knew something had shifted, not only in his daughter, but within himself. That day, instead of rushing into his suit and leaving early, Adrian went down to the kitchen. Grace looked surprised to see him opening the refrigerator. "Mr. Blake? Is something wrong?" Adrian gave an awkward smile, holding a box of cereal. "No. Today I want to make breakfast for Lily." Grace watched, her eyes softening at the sight of the man who once only lived by contracts and phone calls, now fumbling with milk, even dropping a spoon onto the floor. When Lily walked in, her hair still tousled, Adrian set a bowl of cereal before her. "I tried, but it probably doesn't taste as good as when your mom made it." Lily looked at the bowl, then at her father. She smiled faintly, a rare smile Adrian thought he'd never see again. "It's okay, Daddy. I'll eat it all." That small moment was enough to warm his heart. In the days that followed, Adrian began to change. He cut back on evening meetings, declined a few lavish dinners, came home earlier. Instead of drowning in emails past midnight, he spent his time reading stories to his daughter. At first, he was clumsy, his voice rough, sounding like he was delivering a boardroom pitch. But Lily listened intently, wide-eyed, then burst into laughter when he mispronounced a silly word. One evening, after closing the book, Adrian asked, "Would you like to tell me about Mommy?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. She whispered about trips to the park, about her mother's soothing lullabies. Adrian listened to every word, tears rising, but he didn't look away this time. He let her speak. He let Emma's memory live freely in their home. "Do you miss Mommy, Daddy?" Lily asked softly. Adrian swallowed hard. Every day. But I was afraid if I said it, it would make you sadder. No, Daddy. Lily clasped his hand, her eyes clear. I want to remember Mommy with you. That way I won't feel alone. Adrian squeezed her hand, realizing the lesson he had avoided for so long. Listening didn't deepen the pain. It shared the love. One Sunday afternoon, Adrian took Lily to Central Park, where Emma used to take her. They sat on a bench by the pond, tossing crumbs to the pigeons. Lily ran around, hair flying in the wind, laughter echoing among the red autumn leaves. Adrian watched her, his heart swelling with a bittersweet ache. Emma, if only you could see this. On the way home, Lily held his hand and whispered, I liked today. It felt like Mommy was still here. Adrian couldn't speak. He only squeezed her hand tighter. New habits slowly formed. Breakfast was no longer a cold slice of toast grabbed in haste, but moments shared at the table. Adrian, Lily, and Grace, talking about little things in their day. Dinner was no longer silent, but filled with chatter. Lily showing her drawings from school, Adrian sharing a new design sketch, Grace adding light-hearted stories. The living room was no longer hushed, but alive with children's songs, puzzle games, Lily's hesitant but cheerful reading voice. Adrian looked around the apartment and realized that for the first time in years, the house could breathe again. One evening, while clearing the dinner table, Lily suddenly asked, Daddy, would Mommy be sad if she saw you smiling? Adrian froze. What do you think? Lily thought for a moment, then whispered, I think she'd be happy. Because Mommy always wanted you to be. Adrian knelt, looking straight into his daughter's eyes. I promise I'll smile more from now on. Not because I forget Mommy, but because her love is still alive in you and in me. Lily smiled and hugged his neck tightly. In that moment, Adrian understood. Love doesn't vanish with death. It only changes form, into memories, into laughter, into a presence he now had to pass on to his daughter. Late at night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Adrian stood on the balcony overlooking the glowing city. The endless days of burying himself in contracts, the silent nights with nothing but his laptop, the empty promises, they appeared like a long scar. He whispered, as if to Emma, I was wrong for too long. But I won't lose Lily. I will stay. The autumn wind swept past, carrying a gentle echo. And for the first time in 2 years, Adrian believed there might still be a path forward. A path with his daughter, where past and present could exist together in peace. That night, the Tribeca apartment was quiet. After a warm dinner, Lily went to bed earlier than usual. Adrian sat beside her, finishing a bedtime story, his deep voice slowing with each line. When he closed the book, he leaned down to kiss her forehead. Good night, my little princess. Just as he stood to leave, a small hand clutched his wrist. Daddy, don't go yet. Adrian sat back down, concern flickering across his face. What is it, Lily? She bit her lip, eyes wide in the darkness, her voice trembling. I'm scared. Scared that one day you'll disappear like Mommy. I'm scared I'll wake up and no one will be there. Adrian's heart tightened. He saw the haunting fear in her eyes, the fear of being abandoned again. All those months he buried himself in work, leaving her alone in silence, now echoed back at him like heavy blows. He pulled her close. Lily, listen to me. I know you've carried so much pain, but I promise, I won't leave. I'll be here with you. Every morning when you wake, you'll see me. Every night when you fall asleep, I'll wish you good night. Lily pressed her face into his chest, her tears soaking through his shirt. Mommy promised she'd come back, but she never did. Adrian's throat tightened as he held her tighter. That's true. Mommy couldn't come back, but that wasn't her choice. And me, Daddy chooses to stay. I will be here for you always. Silence filled the room, broken only by the tick of the clock. At last, Lily gave a small nod, her tiny shoulders slowly relaxing. Daddy, if you stay, I won't be scared anymore. I'll stay, Adrian whispered, tears spilling though his voice was steady. I'll stay, my sweet girl. That night, for the first time, Adrian didn't leave Lily's room after she fell asleep. He sat on the edge of her bed, listening to her steady breaths, feeling the warmth of her small body close by. In that moment, he understood. Wealth, projects, contracts, all of it was just shadows. What mattered most, what he had nearly lost, was this child. Outside the window, New York still blazed with lights. But within Adrian, another light had just ignited. The light of responsibility, of fatherhood, and of a promise that could never be broken. Winter had laid its first white blanket over New York. The city glowed with Christmas lights, but inside the Tribeca apartment, the transformation was brighter than any decoration. The home that once drowned in silence now brimmed with warmth. The living room rang with Lily's laughter as she and her father pieced together a puzzle. From the kitchen came the scent of fresh cookies, and Lily eagerly held one out. Try it, Daddy. I made it with Miss Grace. Adrian looked at his daughter, her eyes shining, and felt as if he had finally returned to the home he had once let slip away. Each morning, he sat down for breakfast with her instead of rushing to the office. Each night, he read bedtime stories instead of staring at his laptop screen. Each weekend, father and daughter walked through Central Park, where Lily now ran freely among the pigeons, no longer the frightened child who once hid in a closet. Adrian understood that Emma could never return, but he also understood that her love lived on, in every memory, in every smile of their daughter, and he had learned to listen, not only to soothe Lily, but to allow himself to heal. On a quiet winter night, Adrian sat by the window while Lily slept peacefully in her room, her mother's photo still cradled in her arms. He whispered, Emma, I was wrong for too long, but I found our daughter again. And this time, I will never leave her. The story of Adrian and Lily reminds us that loss can take away someone we love, but it cannot take away the chance to love those who remain. A child doesn't need castles or lavish gifts. The one thing they need most is someone willing to sit down, listen, and truly be there. If this story touched your heart, try tonight to set aside your phone and sit with your child, your parents, or your partner. Just a few minutes of listening can bring love back into the room. Simple, but profoundly powerful. And if you wish to share that message, leave a number from 1 to 10 to rate Adrian and Lily's journey. Share this story with someone who might need to hear it, because perhaps that will be the very moment they realize it's time to stay. It's time to listen.